Hello and welcome to the 2023 Indiana Farmers Market Forum. I am Christina Ferroli. I am the Grants Program Coordinator with Indiana Cooperative Development Session. Our next session is Volunteers at Farmers Markets. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get going. I want to remind everyone to please remain muted during the presentation. Please feel free to use emojis and drop your questions into the chat, and we will have time for a Q&A at the end. Toward the end of this presentation, the link for the evaluation survey for this session will be made available in the chat. And we ask you to please take a few minutes to complete this. So we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll introduce our great panel of market managers. First up, I'd like to introduce Hannah Bair. Hannah has been a market manager of the Garfield Park Farmers Market for the past 4 seasons. She's involved with the Garfield Park Farmers Market while working. She started to be involved with it while working for the Tulip Tree Creamery, and she was a vendor. She fell in love with the sense of community and with the way the market leadership valued their vendors. She is passionate about the success of local farms, soil regeneration, healthy, nourishing, and food justice in her community. And she is a native of Indiana and an Indianapolis transplant of 7 years. Next on our panel is Heather Trueblood. Heather is a current program coordinator for Develop New Albany Main Street and interim New Albany Farmers Market manager. She has overseen the farmers market since 2019, and in that time has witnessed a steady growth. With over 75 weekly vendors during the summer season, the market is a community hub on Saturday mornings. Running a year-round outdoor farmers market on the Ohio River isn't for the faint of heart. Heather relies on a team of volunteers to help make it happen. Prior to her current job at Develop New Albany, Heather worked in education and real estate. In her spare time, she enjoys spending time with her family and is currently teaching her teenage son how to drive. She enjoys the relationships with the vendors who have become friends the most. And the fresh food that the market provides is also amazing. She is also most proud of her work in implementing SNAP program and Double Bucks program, which has brought $10,000 into the market in 1.5 years. Next, we'll also have on our panel Ashley Wagner. Ashley will be starting her 12th year with the YLNI Farmers Market this summer. And the YLNI Farmers Market is in Fort Wayne. It seems so surreal to her. When Ashley started with the market, they had 30 vendors and they were excited to see about 500 customers. Now the YLNI Farmers Market averages about 130 vendors each Saturday and welcomes 10,000 customers. It's amazing how their vendors have grown this market season, especially. All within this time, Ashley has dated, gotten married, and had 3 babies. And now she homeschools them and sells real estate. So she's definitely good at juggling many balls. In this market, the YLNI market has taught Ashley so much about leadership, friendship, trials and errors, and much more. And this last summer, our market was voted #1 in Indiana. I definitely wouldn't want to be any other place than on a Saturday morning than at the YLNI Farmers Market. So why don't we go ahead and start with Hannah and get her to share with us about how they use volunteers at the Garfield Farmers Market.
Hi, I'm Hannah. Can everybody hear me okay? Sometimes my Zoom doesn't connect very well. So yeah, perfect. Like Christina said, I've been part of the Garfield Park Farmers Market for 4 years now. I'm going into my 5th season. When I started, we had about 20 vendors per market. Now we're averaging about 38 to 50 vendors per market. So with that, our needs for volunteers have definitely increased. What I can say first of all is that our market is run by a board. So we do have a working board. So they're also kind of our fallback when we can't get enough volunteers. Maybe if it's toward the end of the season when things are dying down, families are going back to school, or big vacation months. So our working board, we will send out a call out email that says, hey, Hannah needs help this weekend. And usually a couple people can help. Some of the biggest ways that we have found volunteers, though, have been utilizing neighborhood groups. So we've posted our sign-up links in neighborhood Facebook group for our farmers market, Garfield Park. We've also used Nextdoor app and posted our sign-up links there. So we've gotten people, one of our newest volunteers and newest board members, actually, she had just moved into the neighborhood, wanted to find a way to meet her neighbors and started volunteering that way. We have gone to neighborhood association meetings and let them know that we're starting back up and ask for volunteers in that way. Every week we send out a newsletter, so we also post our volunteer link in there. And really it's just been a lot of like sharing around. We also use the website. It is Volunteer Match. We've posted on there. And that's, and we have actually reached out to high school key clubs as well. And UIndy, which is really, really close to us, has a public health program. So we've reached out to them for volunteers. So like, if there are schools in the area around your market, that's a really great way to utilize kids who might need service hours or scholarship recommendations or anything like that in the area. You just have to usually get a hold of a guidance counselor or email some administration in the school. So recruiting, it's not super hard, but then keeping them is a little bit harder. We try to make sure we're very clear and upfront with our volunteer tasks. So our website, we use signup.com. And then when the market season starts, we actually have, let me see, sorry, I just saw that. My child is watching TV in the background. So we actually start at the beginning of the season and we post market slots on signup.com. We have 3 different slots throughout the market. So there's a setup, a mid-shift, and a tear down. Each one of these, we list like how physical it's going to be. So if we have somebody who is disabled, somebody who's elderly, or somebody who just does not want to do heavy lifting, we let them know upfront that this one might not be for you. So we have setup, we have mid-shift, and then we have tear down. Mid-shift, we ask that our volunteers pass out waters to the vendors. Really good, fun way for people to get to know our vendors. So we make sure around 10 or 11 at the market that all of our vendors get a bottle of water because it's hot and we appreciate them. We also have some of our younger vendors. We will ask them to take pictures that we can use for social media, for our website, for promotional use. They think that that's really, really fun, especially the high schoolers and the teenagers who can usually take better photos than all of us can. And then we also train our volunteers how to use, who want to stay and continue to volunteer, how to use our POS system for SNAP and for purchasing merchandise like t-shirts. So there's a lot of training that's involved with that shift. But since I'm always in the booth, I'm usually able to go through the training pretty slowly with them and then stay with them and teach all troubleshooting. And then we have tear down shift. And that's another one where we say, you know, this is a little bit more labor intensive. And that's exactly what it sounds like, helping tear down our tents, packing up our trailer, emptying our water dispensers, stuff like that. So we like our vendors to know, our volunteers to know exactly what they're going to be doing up front. We feel like having a plan definitely helps keep our volunteers. That way they're not feeling awkward, kind of wandering around, just hoping that they're told something to do. We have something to do for them as soon as they get there. And we try to make it fun. We're a fun group. And so we give them a t-shirt. We make sure that they know that they can have water bottles. We give them free merch. Sometimes if they are there for tear down shift, they get extra produce or product that vendors don't want anymore. And we try to let them know that, hey, these are kind of cool incentives for coming to help us out. And then they also get invited to our end of the season, like luncheon. So last year we went to a coffee shop afterwards, bought everybody a coffee or a pastry, whatever they wanted. And then we all just kind of hang out and have a good time together. Previously, we've done a pitch-in for our year-end dinner. So we just try and make sure that it's really welcoming and fun and that they know that they're super appreciated. We also do thank you cards from the board. And we try to give some sort of little gift, whether it be one of our bags, some stickers, more t-shirts, stuff like that. And then, yeah, I think that is mainly what I've got on our volunteers. We recognize that some of the volunteers just want to get service hours and get sign-offs, and that's not a problem. We also recognize that some want to hang out for a while, so we try and think up if they're a volunteer that's been with us for a while or wants to continue to volunteer. We usually try to figure that out very quickly, and we can add them to a committee. So we've got a volunteer who interviews vendors, and she writes up little bios for them that we put in the newsletter, and she really loves that. We've got volunteers who really like dogs, so we have them take pictures of the dogs for us to put in our newsletter. We try and figure out like what they really like to do, especially if they want to stay with us, and how we can kind of allow them to do that. So yeah, I think that's it for me.
Awesome.
If you have any questions, feel free to drop it in.
And we'll do a Q&A at the end too. So thank you,
Perfect.
Pam.
Yeah.
I will turn it over to Heather.
Hi. I was taking so many notes. I was like, what am I going to say after that? Thanks, Hannah. So I'm Heather Trueblood. I'm with the New Albany Farmers Market. We are a year-round outdoor market. So about 51 weeks a year. The vendors usually vote to take off the week of Christmas, but that's about it. So just to piggyback what Hannah said, that was great. And I'm going to do a lot of those things. So a couple of the things that we do that she didn't mention, we are ran by the Main Street organization in our community. So that is very, very helpful when it comes to volunteers, because we kind of have a built-in pool of being a volunteer organization anyway, as well as my board members. They all schedule the market. We're also really blessed to have some long time volunteers. I have a volunteer that's been volunteering for 15 years. So it's great to have that institutional memory and knowledge that I don't have. So we're very blessed in that sense. What I learned the hard way last year was I would just throw out like, we need volunteers on Saturday, 8 to noon, and no one would respond. And I was like, man, what am I doing wrong? And then one week I said, I need 2 people to stand at the kids' day tent and check passports and hand out coupons. And I had 5 people volunteer. So being very specific with your task is so important. And also maybe shorter times. You know, we're there from 6 a.m. to noon. I am, but no one else wants to do that. So I was like from 8 to 9 or 9 to 11, very short times, because that's a scary thing to walk into a very big farmer's market and really not know what you're going to be doing. You're going to feel out of place. So being very specific really helped us gather those last minute volunteers that we needed. And primarily that was on social media. We have a really good social media following on Facebook. We do use Sign Up Genius for more of the long time planning so that my board can sign up for shifts to help in the information booth primarily. And then we also have kids' day activities once a month that just require a lot of hands on deck. So that's where you pull in those kids that need service hours. Look at your public high schools, but also don't forget your private. The private schools typically have a little stricter volunteer service hour requirement. And then I think my best piece of advice is don't sleep on your vendors' kids. Some of the vendors bring their kids with them to the market and they work. And those are my best volunteers because they're going to show up every week because their mom made them. I have one boy that puts out the barricade to block the parking lot every week, and he loves it. He's so proud of that job. And I'm actually training him to help me do the SNAP token pickup and marking he loves to count the tokens for me. He's like 10. So your vendors' kids are great because they're there. Sometimes they're bored. They want to get out of their parents' booth, and their parents are usually more than willing to loan them to you for the information booth for a little bit. So using your vendors' kids has really been helpful for me this season. I saw an increase in kids with their parents, and they love to help at the kids events too. Retaining volunteers is probably not my strong suit. I feel like I'm I'm sure we all struggle with how to retain and trying to make it more fun and trying to make it more interactive and making them feel. That's why I love some of the things Hannah said. I was like making notes of list small things that you found someone that loves to interview vendors. Perfect. We need that. So I'm going to do all the things that Hannah said. So take that advice. As far as recognition, I always have a budget for volunteer appreciation. And sometimes I'll grab donuts. We have a vendor that owns a bakery in town. Sometimes I just randomly bring donuts, or I'll tell everyone to go get coffee on me, all my volunteers, go get coffee from one of the vendors. Sometimes I try to just kind of throw extra things in, or I'll just kind of be like, hey, strawberries, it's the first week of strawberries. I bought everybody strawberries today because you were here on the first week of strawberries, and that's a big deal. And then I do like to take some of our key volunteers out to lunch at the end of the season. We have about 3 or 4 really key volunteers, and I want to just sit down with them and get their feedback on what worked and what didn't, because when you're in it, and sometimes you can't see what could be better. And also ask them to be on a committee. We have a farmers market committee that's made up of vendors, board members, and volunteers, because that's the voices you need in the room. So asking them to be a part of that, that's a 1 hour a month commitment. And we don't even, we typically don't meet during the summer because we're all just so busy with the market. We do email. So it's 1 hour a month for me, asking for like 7 months out of the year, but they feel so empowered. We've been working on our vendor handbook, and they're helping me read through it. And yeah, we also use Sign Up Genius. I said that, I think, but I love all these other ideas. I feel like I'm taking more notes than you guys, but just we're always thinking that, sometimes it's hard because we're so involved in the market and the planning and that sometimes Saturdays is just a blur. And taking a step back and realizing that everything about the market, but your volunteers don't when they walk in for the first time, and you have to put yourself in their shoes and say, hey, listen, I've been doing this for years. I know what I'm supposed to do, but they don't. So really having a good plan in place of how you're going to onboard them, so to speak, and get them plugged in. Because, a volunteer one time is great, but a volunteer 25 times is better. And if you don't take care of them that first time, they're not going to come back. So just really focusing on, the market is fun. It's hot in the middle of July, we're grumpy sometimes at 5:45 in the morning when we haven't had our Dr. Pepper yet. But just remembering that you would be a lot grumpier if you didn't have anyone to help you that day. So whatever you can do to make them come back is the goal.
That sounds great. Thank you, Heather. Appreciate it. Next up, we have Ashley.
Hi, hello. So, gosh, you girls have some great ideas. I had to take a lot of notes too. Like Christina said, our market in the 12 years I've been there has gone to 30 vendors to now 130. So to have volunteers come, it's like, I don't know, having gold. There's so much that needs to be done. And Heather and Hannah had some great ideas. We check in with our local schools because a lot of them are looking for volunteer opportunities. They have service hours that they have to do. We have a couple of local volunteer organizations that actually plug volunteers in, which there's like a Volunteer Fort Wayne, and then the websites that Heather and Hannah both mentioned. Those have been super helpful too. There's also people that need to do community service. And so, and usually for them, for the ones that have come to us, the tasks that we've asked them to do have been pretty helpful, have been pretty easy for them. And so they come back, if they have 20 hours that they need to complete, whatever, they've been good at coming back, staying on that. Something new we're going to try this year that was recommended by one of our vendors is have like a volunteer deposit program is what we're calling it. And so we're actually going to charge our vendors like $10 to $15, and they can get that money back if they do a couple of tasks, if they bring the trash cans back in, or if they bring the round tables back in. We have a list, and so we've assigned each task a dollar amount. And so if they volunteer a couple of times, then they get that money back, goes right back to them. Now, if they choose not to do to sign up to do any of those tasks, then we're going to have that money set aside to make small donations to local groups, maybe like the Boy Scouts, something like that, that could bring in a couple of kids in the afternoons to help out. So that's something we're going to try this year. Kind of nervous about it, but we'll see how it goes. So at the market, there's a lot of things that we need them to do. We have a couple of volunteers that are dedicated and they're there. They just kind of know what they need to do. And so when we have new volunteers come in, that really helps. They really help them out. Like in the mornings, that's usually when we have most volunteers. But in the afternoons, that's when we're really lacking. You know, like Heather alluded to, it's hot outside. No one wants to come in the middle of the day. So that's the hardest part, is to get volunteers at that time. As far as retaining our volunteers, I have nothing new to add besides what Heather and Hannah both said. You know, that we're so thankful that they come. We get them some lunch. We get them. We always make sure our vendors get t-shirts, and you know, we encourage them to go walk around, because we're there because we love to be there. So we want our volunteers to love to be there. So we encourage them to walk around, get to know the vendors, talk to them, et cetera, et cetera. That's kind of it. I didn't really have, like I said, Hannah and Heather did a great job. So
Do you do anything for recognition, Ashley?
Not a ton, because it's been tough, very tough to get volunteers. And so there are many days that we don't have volunteers, that it's me, and we do have one other staff person. She's like technically our volunteer coordinator. So she just kind of like tells our volunteers what to do. So a lot of days it's just her and I that are doing things. So we don't have necessarily like a luncheon, something like that at the end of the season. We really just try to show our appreciation while they're there.
Excellent. Heather or Hannah, if you'd like to share anything?
I did think of one other thing, a resource to look into your local colleges. We've been very, very fortunate. We are in the same city as Indiana University Southeast, and get in touch with their career and development center, because a lot of college students' majors require them to have an internship. And these are unpaid internships because they're getting college credit. I actually have 2 interns for the summer market so that they can rotate. So I'm not asking a college kid to come at 7:30 every week. It's twice a month. But I've been very pleased with that relationship with our local college and interns. I'm very excited to have them. They're both communications, business, or marketing majors is typically what they are, and they want this experience. So they're going to go do farm visits with me this season. They're going to come take all my social media pictures, run social media, and just come. I'm just having them come kind of when the market first opens, so that I can have them. And then I have them during the week also to help with data entry and doing those things. So really check into your local colleges, because I think most colleges have unpaid internship, and they can be paid too. Right now, ours are unpaid, but that's a great resource.
Thank you. I dropped what you just said into the chat for everyone. The other one would be public health programs and dietetics would also have, they'd be great for internships. Anybody have questions? Have any of you reached out to service organizations? I know someone, I believe Hannah mentioned the Kiwanis, which is the K clubs, but what about Rotary or some of the other service organizations and Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts for volunteers?
Reach out. I actually just did a talk. Our Rotary has weekly meetings and they have speakers. So reach out to your local Rotary and ask if you can come speak about the farmers market. Because I was able to go and give about a 30-minute presentation. And then they were all asking, questions. And then someone asked about senior centers. I'm not sure if this is a statewide program, but it's called the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program, RSVP. They have an office in my city, but I think it's multiple counties. I'm not sure how wide that is, but if you have an RSVP program, it is literally that. It's retired people who want to just do stuff. So they've come, they're not super helpful in my opinion at the farmers market because it is hot and it's outdoors and it is sometimes manual labor. But on the back end, they've come in and helped me stuff envelopes for different things, or they can come help with some office duties during the week to kind of eliminate that. But if you have the RSVP program, and they also have a new, actually, I was just looking at the newsletter that I got, because in the newsletter they send out, I think bi-monthly, it has all of the opportunities for people to volunteer. So getting your information in that newsletter is also really important too.
Yeah, someone asked about reaching out to senior centers. That would also be a really good place to recruit for retired volunteers in the chat. How many of you have budgets that will allow you to do something special for your volunteers? I know Heather does. Hannah, do you have a budget?
Yes, we do. So we make sure to do or include them in our end of the year celebration. So that's all paid for. And then, yeah, I was texting with our board president and she suggested that we add money in the budget to buy him snacks too from the market, because that was a really good idea.
This is a little bit of a side note, but if we accidentally did this last year. So for the first 2 weeks of the summer market, when we kicked it back off, I was like, oh, I'm going to do snacks and water. I'll just go to Sam's, buy a bunch of, snacks and some water, and we'll just go around and give them a snack and a water just for goodwill the first couple of weeks. What I found was we have a vendor survey that they fill out every week. And they were commenting like, oh my gosh, they gave us snacks. Heather brought snacks. Like, that's crazy. It's amazing. And so my budget ran out very quickly because I didn't have a budget for that. And I went to my board and I said, you guys, we can't stop. Like, this is the nicest thing they've ever said about me, is that I bring them snacks every week. And it's so simple. So it doesn't have to be all the time, literally, and I would have the kids do it. I would find a couple vendor kids and I'd be like, hey, you're in charge of the cooler, you're in charge of the snacks, give everybody a snack. And just something that simple could just be once a month. I mean, I would recommend something, and I don't know how you do 130 vendors. I'm at like 67 and feel like my brain is mush sometimes, but little things like that don't cost a ton of money, but bring a lot of goodwill. And it's a great volunteer job. That's a super easy volunteer job. And it's, they love doing it. So just kind of, I know it's hard to get budget for some things, because there's always something else that your budget needs to go to. But on top of, obviously we give snacks and stuff to our volunteers. If you can include your vendors, I'm telling you, a little bit goes a long way with that. And you can ask someone to sponsor it. I was asking everybody I knew. I was like, who wants to give me $300? I'll put your logo on my cooler and wheel it around town when I'm giving out drinks. And they all laughed. I was like, I'm serious. I need $300. Or I'm just going to go over budget on something else. But get a sponsor. That's great publicity. If you're hot and it's noon in July and someone gives you a water and they say it's courtesy of blank, blank, blank insurance, I'm remembering that because I was hot. So get a sponsor for that. Don't be afraid to ask for money. That's my non-volunteer thing. Is I used to be really afraid to ask for money, and now I'm not. And we've been able to add so many programs to our market that I had to self-fund because they weren't in our budget. And now I'm just like, I'll ask anyone for money because it's so important. So.
And Heather, you touched on an important sponsorship, and also was thinking, do any of you reach out like to companies to volunteer? Like, it's volunteer day for, I don't know, Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, let's just say that, or day of service, because I know we have there's a spring and a fall day of service. So do any of you like reach out to companies perhaps to get their employees to come volunteer? Any of you tried it?
We don't, but we just recently started talking about that. As the Main Street organization, we're funded by partnership from the local businesses. And so we talked about, partnership comes in the form of time, talent, and treasure. So we're asking for your treasure, but we're also asking for your time. And for us, the farmers market is the largest volunteer need on a weekly basis. So we are starting to kind of think through that. And some of the bigger companies, that's kind of a pitch to them, like, hey, be part of the Main Street organization. And we also would love for your volunteers or your staff to plug in. So that's something we're kind of treading on, is using volunteerism as a plus to make businesses want to be more a part of our organization and community.
Ashley, do you?
We have actually created like a sponsorship level for businesses for them to get involved with the market. Maybe they can do a day of sponsoring our volunteers, where if they provide, 3 to 5 volunteers for a 2-hour shift, or maybe for a couple of different shifts throughout the day, then they can wear their own branded shirt. We have our musician announce them throughout the day, and then we also thank them on our social media. And then, of course, we still give them a volunteer t-shirt. So we've had a couple of businesses take advantage of that. The other thing that we do is we get our nonprofits involved in our pop tent. So we have our nonprofits manage, like we sign them up each Saturday and have a different nonprofit oversee our pop tent. And so they're the ones that are handing out the pop tokens. So that's been a lifesaver, because there's no way that we could manage the pop tent. We love the program, but we really need help with that. So it's our nonprofit organizations that help with that tent. And then, of course, it gets, more people in front of them, because we advertise our pop tent so heavily. So, we can give out like 200 pop tokens each day. And so that's 200 plus families that are looking for this tent that get to be in front of the nonprofits. So that has been a huge help as well.
How do you, so you mentioned that you have like volunteer t-shirts and stuff. How do you raise money? Do you like fundraise for that, or are you guys a nonprofit, or how are you run, Ashley?
We are a nonprofit. We just put it in our budget to buy volunteer t-shirts, but it's actually one of our vendors that make the t-shirts. So that's helpful.
Oh, that's clever. Yeah. Oh, real estate companies love to sponsor community markets. Yeah, thank you, Ashley. Ashley also posted in the chat that Salesforce does volunteer days of service. I know a lot of companies do that. Hannah, do you have any thoughts on groups and organizations reaching out to them?
So we have reached out to different groups in our neighborhoods about volunteering, and just about coming and setting up to let people know about their programs in our neighborhood. We've done, I don't think we've done any specific volunteer days from any companies, but I know we've had Eskenazi nurses come out, and quite a few people in IUPUI and UIndy's dietetics and human health and services programs. So we definitely try to get the knowledge out there to all the health-based organizations in the area, that if they need to do a certain amount of service hours or anything like that, that we are more than happy to accept the help and sign off on things like that. And then, yeah, just wanted to restate, as for like creating your little volunteer community, make sure, that they know who you are when they get there, so that they don't have to wander in confused. So we try to email them and say, this is who you're looking for. And we include photos of me and of maybe the volunteer coordinator, and make sure that they know that they're going to be doing things in little blocks, and that we're going to have something for them to do, so that they're not intimidated and it's not weird when they get there for them.
And if you have a newsletter that you're consistently sending out, do volunteer spotlights.
Yeah, we do that too.
Post it on your social media, giving them that, that free, simple thank you and public recognition goes almost as far as a water.
A lot of great comments. So please drop your thoughts and ideas. And if you have a question, please drop it in the chat. Sounds like it sounds like there's a lot that these markets are doing to recruit volunteers and retain them, and also to recognize them. So thank you, ladies. A lot of good thoughts. Any other? Well, I just dropped the survey for this session into the chat, so please hop in there and complete the survey for us. And we are scheduled to take a break. a lunch break at 12:15. We're just a little bit early. So if anybody has anything else they'd like to share, if not, I will give you guys a little bit of extra time for lunch. And I want to thank Hannah, Ashley, and Heather for a fantastic session on how they recruit volunteers and how they recognize volunteers and how important volunteers are for farmers markets. So thank you all for participating in this session. Thank you again, Hannah, Ashley, and Heather. And I will go ahead and give you all a few extra minutes for lunch, and we will start up again at 1 o'clock with Sharon Petit and the home-based vendor law update. So thank you all for participating.